waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for?
During the late 1990s, the horror film genre experienced a genuine resurgence, largely thanks to a wave of slashers that emerged during that era. Rising stars of television and indie films like Neve Campbell, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Jennifer Esposito, Skeet Ulrich, Liev Schreiber, Joshua Jackson, Ryan Philippe, Parker Posey, and Timothy Oliphant all found themselves cast in franchises such as Scream or I Know What You Did Last Summer. These movies not only redefined the slasher genre, but also offered pointed social commentary. They weren't just gratuitous gore fests. They pointed fingers at the media, our culture of voyeurism, and the unhealthy obsession audiences often have with violence. They also offered some of the most amazing original soundtracks of the late 90s, with great artists such as Creed, Typo Negative, Alice Cooper, Julie Cruz, Sister Machine Gun, Republica, and even Jennifer Love Hewitt. Director Wes Craven and screenwriter Kevin Williamson kicked everything off with the original Scream, which, dripping with sarcasm, systematically deconstructed the rules of the slasher film. At its core, this franchise served as a biting mirror, reflecting how society consumes horror and how the media exploits suffering, notably through the character of Gale Weathers, played by Courtney Cox. Scream 3, which I personally think is quite successful, was initially meant to conclude the trilogy by revealing Sidney's secret half-brother, while delivering an almost prophetic condemnation of a Hollywood producer who preys on young actresses. An irony made even starker by the fact that Scream originated at Miramax, once owned by Harvey Weinstein.
Detectives, there's no reason to presume that Cotton's death had anything to do with this movie, is there?
He was making a movie called Stab. He was stabbed.
Then came Scream 4, which, let's face it, proved rather disappointing despite a fun opening scene featuring Sheena Grimes and Lucy Hale, who at the time were riding high on 90210 and Pretty Little Liars.
Eat me.
You hang up on me and I'll cut through your neck until I feel bone.
Wes Craven tried to reapply his magic formula of casting trendy actresses, as he did when he brought Sarah Michelle Gellar, Rebecca Gayheart, and Scott Foley into the earlier sequels. Unfortunately, the script failed to recapture the meta-critique horror balance that made the franchise shine. As for the overall cheap vibe, there's literally a scene using a mannequin as a corpse. It clearly hinted at a limited budget. Scream 5 attempted a sort of woke rewriting by outright killing Dewey, a colossal mistake, and sidelining both Sidney and Gale to glorified cameo status, completely unacceptable for two iconic characters. Then there's Scream 6, which opened with a scene that in my view is an insult to the genre if you judge it by Wes Craven's standards. There's no double murder, nothing genuinely frightening, and the action suddenly moves to New York, evoking that odd Friday the 13th Part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan vibe. As a result, the series strays far from its original DNA. Still, Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega deserve a lot of credit for their excellent performances in Scream 5 and Scream 6. Yet Hollywood clearly wasn't ready for Melissa Barrera's outspoken stance on Palestine. She labeled the situation there a massacre and genocide. The studio Spyglass immediately accused her of anti-Semitism and fired her from Scream 7, demonstrating, in the process, the limits of Hollywood's self-proclaimed woke mindset. They like to brand themselves progressive, but apparently not when it comes to Palestine, turning a valid political stand into a so-called hate speech. As for Jenna Ortega, the official excuse is scheduling conflicts, but we all know she shares Melissa Barrera's position on the tragedy befalling the Palestinian people, so it seems pretty convenient. Take a moment to notice how, for well over a century, Hollywood has had absolutely no problem humiliating, insulting, and vilifying Arab or Muslim characters. They justify it as freedom of expression or some vague notion of artistic creativity. And yet, when someone like Melissa Barrera or any other artist dares to speak up in their defense, they're immediately silenced and punished. This blatant double standard highlights the hypocrisy at the core of the industry. It claims to champion tolerance and free speech, but only when it suits its own interests. But as I always say, that's a conversation for another day. Neve Campbell, Sydney, is now set to return, despite having once insisted she was done with Scream after the second movie. It goes to show a big enough check can change anyone's mind. After Scream became a runaway hit, Columbia Pictures wanted a success of its own. Enter I Know What You Did Last Summer, 1997, again penned by Kevin Williamson. It's sort of like how Charmed followed in the footsteps of Buffy. The new film borrows from the original blueprint while managing not to be a complete rip-off. The first I Know What You Did Last Summer is still considered a classic. Four friends, Julie, Helen, Barry, and Ray, hide a tragic accident and end up hunted 1 year later by a mysterious killer dressed as a fisherman, wielding a hook. The sequel, taking place in rainy Bahamas, is less memorable, though it does feature Brandy. And then came I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, the third film, dumped straight to DVD like an old clearance item. A painfully bland cast, no-name actors with the charisma of a wet sponge, a shoestring budget, and a completely non-existent script. You'd think that would have finally killed the franchise for good. But no, Hollywood decided it was still worth milking. In September 2024, Camila Mendes walked away from the new project. She was soon replaced, or maybe not, by Chase Sui Wonders, who was still in negotiations at last report. Freddie Prinze Jr., aka Ray Bronson, came back without hesitation, joined by Billy Campbell and a few other recruits. Meanwhile, Jennifer Love Hewitt stated that she'd love to revisit her role as Julie James, though she still hasn't officially signed, supposedly because she's busy with her show, 911. Sarah Michelle Gellar, on the other hand, only did a quick set visit to support her husband, Freddie Prinze Jr., with no plans to resurrect Helen, who died in the first film. It's no secret that Gellar's relationship with Jennifer Love Hewitt is frosty at best. Let's just say those two have never really been best friends.
Now, I saw that you posted on your Instagram, I Know What You Did Last Summer, the little director's chair. What can you tease for us?
Oh, it's so good. Again, you know, there's so many great stories, and the way to honor them is to just extend that universe. And Jennifer Kate Robinson has put together an incredible cast, and the script is so much fun.
I know Jennifer Love Hewitt said that she's possibly returning. You can't tell if that's how.
I have nothing to do with that.
Speaking of Jennifer Love Hewitt, watch how classy she remains when Tommy DiDario asks her about her hopes for this new I Know What You Did Last Summer. Roll the excerpt.
Oh, are you possibly preparing to be Julie James again?
I am possibly preparing for that. I am so close to being able to say something that's exciting. But it has been very hard to do. And I want to clarify this because so many people have been like literally the line in the movie, what are you waiting for? Like, what is happening, right? And it has only been scheduling and then me trying to make sure that if I go back to the franchise, I just don't want to be the ghost of like 90s past. Like, I really want to do something and I want to be there for Julie James fans. And so we have just been trying to figure it out. And I think we're really close to figuring it out. And I will be as excited as everyone else if I can say that officially very soon.
Have you heard anything about possibly Brandy returning?
I have heard that. Yes, I have.
Okay.
Because they were besties in the movie. I had to remind myself, if I'm being totally honest, I had to go through both movies and remind myself who had died and who hadn't.
We know almost nothing about the plot, except that it's apparently going to be another legacy sequel in the vein of Halloween 2018 or Scream 2022. Honestly, I'm good. Spare us another hidden offspring, a secret mom, or some hastily tacked-on feminist angle that feels fake. Bring back Brandy, because why not? After all, she survived the killings, and we'd love to see her again on the big screen. And let Jennifer Love Hewitt sing on the original soundtrack, because How Do I Deal is a great song that captures the essence of late 90s female pop rock. It's a bit of a shame, really, because who doesn't remember those iconic horror chase scenes featuring blondes, and others too, running for their lives? I stand by it. Drew Barrymore deserved an Oscar nomination for her role as Casey Becker in Scream. Meanwhile, Rose McGowan's performance in the garage scene remains a masterclass in the genre. Sarah Michelle Gellar, whether in her Scream 2 cameo or her frantic chase in I Know What You Did Last Summer, proves that a committed actor can elevate any project. Special shout-outs to Kelly Rutherford, fresh off Melrose Place, MTV star and playmate Jenny McCarthy, and of course, Jada Pinkett and Parker Posey. Fun fact, Shannen Doherty and Alyssa Milano were both considered for Scream 3. As someone who loves that third installment, I believe having them on board would have made it even better. Nowadays, it feels like the industry is trying to recycle old IPs under a veneer of so-called modernity and ham-fisted political messaging. Just look at the train wreck that is The Craft, legacy for a lesson in how not to bolt on pseudo-progressive themes to an existing property. The original film boasted a completely different DNA, incredible actresses, a killer soundtrack, and a genuinely entertaining plot. When it comes down to it, whether we're talking about Scream 7 or the new I Know What You Did Last Summer, it's clear that the main goal is to lure audiences with famous names and nostalgic franchises. But by repeatedly milking these properties, they risk betraying the very qualities that made them hits in the first place. The biting social commentary of Scream, the nail-biting suspense of the original I Know What You Did Last Summer, and the freshness of the 90s casts, all that is in danger of being sacrificed on the altar of yet another marketing gimmick. Maybe it's time we let Ghostface and the hook-wielding fisherman retire for good, so we can start writing new, intelligent horror films. If we don't, we'll just keep fumbling like The Craft, Legacy, or the later Halloween entries, or those ill-advised Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer TV series. Audiences aren't stupid, and the horror genre deserves more than a cynical facelift or the endless recycling of a story that no longer feels relevant in today's cinema landscape. But hey, that's just my take. Let me know in the comments whether you're actually looking forward to these sequels, or if, like me, you've had more than enough.